There is a particular kind of pain that changes you forever. Not the pain caused by strangers, not the pain caused by enemies, but the pain of looking around during the darkest chapter of your life and realizing that the person you counted on most is nowhere to be found. Maybe they promised they would always be there. Maybe they said, "You can depend on me." Maybe they held your hand when life was easy, but when the storm arrived, they disappeared. And what makes it hurt so much is not simply that they left, it is that they left when you needed them the most. If you've ever experienced that kind of abandonment, then you already know something most people spend years trying to understand. The people we trust are not truly revealed during our victories. They are revealed during our suffering, because anyone can stand beside you when the sun is shining, but only a few remain when the sky turns dark. Tonight, I want to tell you a story. Not just my story, not just your story, but the story of countless people who discovered a painful truth about human nature after being abandoned at the exact moment they needed love, support, understanding, or loyalty. And by the end of this video, you may realize that the person leaving was not the end of your story. It was the beginning of seeing people clearly, because sometimes the greatest heartbreak is also the greatest revelation. And what you discover after being abandoned may become one of the most powerful lessons of your life. Part 1. The moment you realize you are alone. The most devastating heartbreak isn't when someone walks away. It's when you realize they've already left emotionally long before they physically disappeared. Imagine this. You are carrying a burden so heavy that you can barely breathe. Maybe you lost someone you loved. Maybe your world collapsed financially. Maybe anxiety kept you awake for weeks. Maybe you were fighting a battle nobody could see. And during that moment, there was one person you expected to stand beside you, one person whose presence felt certain, one person who always claimed they cared. At first, you make excuses for their absence. They must be busy. They probably don't know how much I'm hurting. They'll call tomorrow. But tomorrow becomes next week becomes next month, and slowly, a painful realization begins to emerge. You are facing this alone. The silence becomes louder than any argument. The unanswered messages begin to tell a story words never could. The distance becomes impossible to ignore, and suddenly, you are forced to confront a truth you never wanted to believe. The person you needed most is not coming. Psychologists often speak about grief as something that happens after death, but there is another kind of grief that few people discuss. The grief of losing someone who is still alive. The grief of watching a relationship die while the person continues existing somewhere else. Carl Jung once observed that people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. Many people disappear during another person's suffering because suffering demands emotional courage. It demands presence, it demands sacrifice, and not everyone is capable of giving those things. This realization hurts because it forces us to separate who people are from who we hoped they were. For years we may carry an image of someone in our minds, but crisis acts like fire. It burns away illusions, and what remains is reality, painful, uncomfortable, yet honest. Because the darkest moments of life do not merely reveal our strength, they reveal the true character of the people around us, and that revelation is often the first step toward freedom. Part 2. The hidden reason. Some people leave when you need them most. What if the person who abandoned you wasn't running from your pain? What if they were running from something inside themselves? One of the hardest truths to accept after being abandoned is this: their departure was not always a reflection of your worth. Sometimes it was a reflection of their limitations. When someone leaves during your darkest season, the mind immediately turns inward. You begin questioning everything. Was I too much? Did I ask for too much? Was I not important enough? Was I not lovable enough? And because human beings naturally seek explanations, we often create stories that place all the blame on ourselves. But life is rarely that simple. Many people love comfort more than connection. They love relationships when they are easy, when conversations are light, when laughter is frequent, when no sacrifices are required. But the moment pain enters the picture, something changes, because suffering has a way of exposing emotional maturity. It reveals who views love as a feeling and who views love as a commitment. Anyone can enjoy the warmth of a fire. Not everyone is willing to gather wood during the winter. This is why some people disappear when life becomes difficult, not because they hate you, not because they plan to betray you, but because your struggle forced them to confront emotions they were never taught how to handle. Your pain became a mirror, and what they saw frightened them. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche wrote, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." Yet many people never develop the emotional strength required to stand beside suffering. Instead, they avoid it, escape it, distract themselves from it. And unfortunately, that avoidance often looks like abandonment. Think about a ship caught in a violent storm. Strong sailors do not abandon the vessel when the waves become dangerous. That is precisely when their character matters most. Weak sailors look for the nearest lifeboat. Relationships work the same way. Adversity does not create character. It reveals it. And while that realization may break your heart initially, it eventually offers something far more valuable. Clarity. Because once you stop asking why they stayed away and start recognizing who they revealed themselves to be, something powerful happens. The confusion begins to fade, the self-blame begins to weaken, and the painful question changes. You stop asking, "Why wasn't I enough?" And you begin asking, "Why was I expecting someone incapable of carrying emotional weight to carry mine?" That shift changes everything, because healing truly begins when you stop measuring your value by another person's ability to show up. Some people leave because they lack loyalty. Some leave because they lack courage. Some leave because they lack emotional depth. But none of those things determine your worth. They only reveal theirs. And once you understand that, abandonment starts transforming into awareness. The wound is still there, but now you can finally see it clearly. Part 3. The unexpected gift hidden inside abandonment. The moment they left felt like the end of everything. But what if that painful goodbye was actually removing a blindfold you didn't know you were wearing? At first, abandonment feels like pure loss. A door closes, a voice disappears, a presence that once felt permanent suddenly becomes a memory, and for a while all you can see is what was taken from you. The friendship, the relationship, the trust, the future you imagined together. But time has a strange way of changing perspective. What once looked like destruction slowly begins to reveal itself as revelation. Because when someone leaves during your hardest season, they unknowingly give you a gift. Not the gift you wanted, but often the gift you needed. The gift of truth. Many people spend years surrounded by individuals who were never truly committed to them. The relationship survives only because life remains comfortable. As long as there are celebrations, vacations, successes, and easy conversations, everything appears healthy. But difficult seasons expose foundations. A building may look beautiful from the outside, yet only an earthquake reveals whether it was built on stone or sand. Human relationships are no different. Your crisis became the earthquake, and suddenly you could see what was real. The people who remained. The people who checked on you without being asked. The people who sat with you when they had no solutions. The people who chose presence over convenience. Those people are rare. And because they are rare, they are priceless. The ancient philosopher Epictetus taught that circumstances do not make the man. They merely reveal him to himself. The same is true for relationships. Adversity reveals people, not who they pretend to be, not who they wish they were, but who they actually are when loyalty becomes inconvenient. And while this discovery hurts, it also liberates, because false security is still false. An illusion of support is not support. An illusion of loyalty is not loyalty. An illusion of love is not love. Many people mourn the loss of someone without realizing they are mourning the version of that person they created in their minds. The actual person revealed themselves long ago. The pain comes from the gap between reality and expectation. And when that gap finally closes, wisdom begins. You start seeing relationships differently. You stop being impressed by grand promises. You stop being hypnotized by beautiful words. You start paying attention to actions, consistency, presence, character, because anyone can say, "I'm here for you." But suffering tests that statement, and suffering never lies. Perhaps that is the hidden gift of abandonment. It teaches you to distinguish between those who enjoy your company and those who genuinely value your existence. One group stays when life is easy, the other stays when life is hard, and once you learn that difference, you never look at people the same way again. The heartbreak remains. But now it carries wisdom, and wisdom is often born from the very experiences we never wanted to endure. Part 4. The moment you stop needing the person who left. The greatest turning point is not when they come back. It's when you realize their return is no longer necessary for your peace. There comes a day that nobody talks about. A quiet day, an ordinary day, a day that arrives without celebration, without warning, and without applause. Yet it changes everything, because it is the day you wake up and realize you survived. Not perfectly, not without scars, but you survived. For months, maybe years, you carried the weight of their absence. You replayed conversations. You searched for explanations. You imagined different endings. Part of you believed that healing would only come if they apologized, if they understood, if they returned, if they finally recognized what they did to you. But life has a fascinating way of teaching lessons we resist. Eventually, you discover something unexpected. Closure is not always something another person gives you. Sometimes closure is something you create yourself. The philosopher Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." At first, those words sound impossible. How can someone have power over their mind when their heart has been shattered? But slowly, experience proves him right. You begin rebuilding, not because you wanted to, because you had no choice. You learn how to sit alone. You learn how to carry your own burdens. You learn how to comfort yourself on difficult nights. And with every challenge you survive, a quiet confidence starts growing inside you, a confidence that was never there before. Because there is something transformative about discovering you can endure what once seemed unbearable. The person who was abandoned is not the same person who emerges from the experience. The abandoned version of you searched for rescue. The healed version of you becomes your own rescue. And this is the part nobody who leaves ever expects. They imagine your life freezing at the moment they walked away. They imagine remaining the central character in your story forever. But healing rewrites the narrative. Little by little, you start laughing again. You start dreaming again. You start building again. You start becoming someone stronger than the version of yourself that depended on their presence. Then one day, a memory appears, a song, a photograph, a place you once shared, and instead of pain overwhelming you, something surprising happens. You simply smile, not because what happened was acceptable, not because it didn't hurt, but because it no longer controls you. The chain is broken. The wound has become a scar, and scars tell stories. They remind us not only of what hurt us, but also of what we survived. Perhaps the deepest lesson of abandonment is this: the people who leave during your darkest hour often believe they are taking something from you. But if you keep moving forward, if you keep growing, if you keep choosing yourself despite the disappointment, you eventually realize they did not take your strength. They revealed it. They did not destroy your future. They redirected it, and they did not define your worth. They simply exposed the danger of placing your worth in the hands of someone else. So if someone left when you needed them most, remember this: their absence may have broken your heart, but it also introduced you to a version of yourself you had never met before. A stronger version, a wiser version, a more resilient version, and sometimes the person you become after the abandonment is far more valuable than the person who abandoned you, because the greatest victory is not making them regret leaving. The greatest victory is reaching a place where their departure no longer matters, where your peace is no longer connected to their presence, where your happiness no longer depends on their approval, and where your future no longer waits for someone who chose not to stay. That is the moment true healing begins. That is the moment freedom arrives, and that is the moment you finally understand. The story was never about the person who left. The story was always about the person who survived. If this story touched something inside you, remember this: not everyone who walks into your life is meant to stay forever. Some people arrive as companions, others arrive as lessons, and sometimes the most painful departures become the greatest teachers. The person who left when you needed them most may have broken your trust, but they also revealed your strength. They showed you that even when support disappears, even when expectations collapse, there is still something powerful within you that refuses to give up. So don't measure your life by who abandoned you. Measure it by who you became afterward, because one day you'll look back on this chapter and realize that what felt like an ending was actually the beginning of your transformation. And when that day comes, you won't ask why they left. You'll be grateful that you learned how to stand on your own.